Hello, everybody. This is Prion. It has been a really long time. Go by a new name now, and I have been really enjoying League of Legends Wild Rift. Let me just say that. I've played about 300 games so far. I'm about halfway through Platinum right now, playing top lane, and so I thought, what better way to kick off returning to making YouTube videos about a mobile MOBA than making a tier list for the position that I have played the most so far in Wild Rift. So for those of you who don't know me, I used to make a lot of Vainglory videos. If you scroll down on my channel, I used to be the head coach and head analyst of Nova Esports professional Vainglory team. Obviously that game does not exist anymore, so I've been doing other stuff for years now. But back in the day, I did coach that team to a North American championship. So yeah, I like to think of myself as pretty knowledgeable about MOBAs. And I guess without further ado, let's get into talking about the Wild Rift top lane or Baron lane tier list. So here on the screen, we have the tier list that I have created. I just went to a full League of Legends roster tier list and added all of the top lane champions that are actually in Wild Rift. Really can't wait for them to add more top lane champions. But yeah, as you can see at the top, we have the SS rank. So what better place to start than there? First, let's talk about Akali. Akali is extremely strong in Wild Rift. She really does not have any hard counters. She's got an incredibly high skill cap, very surprisingly easy and incredible trading ability. It's very hard to lose trades on Akali. She's got devastating combo potential once she gets all her abilities up, and her recommended build comes with actual magic vamp, which means she sustains really well. And she also usually takes Triumph as a rune. I think that's what it's called. So she does execute damage also on top of the execute damage that she already has on her kit. She outranges basically every melee champion and has amazing gap closing against ranged champions with her perk, Assassin's Mark. So Akali is just overall very good. If you play against a incredible Akali player and they're just on their game that day, there's not really much you can do except play passive and hope that your other lanes are going to win. She does have a few soft counters, and I can list them out here for you. The first one is Kennen. Kennen is a soft counter to Akali, I believe, because of his Mark of the Storm perk. So Akali always wants to get just into your range to do her 5-point strike and then run away, right? Which means that a lot of the time she's going to be stepping into or in front of your minions in order to 5-point strike you. And then after she 5-point strikes and she hits you, she's going to run away, trigger her perk, and then run back in with the movement speed and try to hit you. So that's where Kennen comes in, because as soon as she hits you with that first ability and then she starts to run back towards you with her empowered attack, Kennen just kind of uses his shuriken. And getting consistent shuriken hits with Kennen is really good, because as soon as he hits that shuriken, then he can trigger his second ability, and then Akali is one mark away from getting stunned. So you can chain stuns on Akali really well as Kennen as she tries to go for her normal trading combo. All it takes is one shuriken hit on her, and then you can easily chain your other abilities into a Mark of the Storm stun, which will make her back off and break her regular trading combo. So I really like to pick Kennen when I see an enemy Akali that I think is going to be top lane. Next, we can talk about Pantheon. He's not as good of a counter to Akali. You'll have to take Sweeper. I think if you want to soft counter Akali with Pantheon, you really want to get up in her face as Pantheon. Get your passive up as Pantheon, get in her face, use the stun, and just execute your full combo on her before she can set up for her trading pattern. Farm the minions quickly, get your 5-hit passive up, and hit that empowered shield vault on her before she can start her little rotation that she does to trade with you. That's how you're going to counter her with Pantheon. Ignite her early, force her away from the wave, make it uncomfortable for her to farm as Pantheon, throw spears at her from range, and if she does get on you, you can just use Aegis Assault and back up. So this is more of a skill matchup, but whereas with Kennen, countering Akali is about like waiting for her to do her combo and then intercepting it at the end. With Pantheon, you want to break it up before it begins. So Camille is next. Camille is even less of a counter, but I figured she's still like worthy of being on here because she can go untargetable by like dashing to a wall. She can also go untargetable in the animation for her ult. So if you can survive the first few levels as Camille, get your ult up, get pretty close to your first item, you're gonna have an even fight against Akali, like with your ult and with Ignite. If you can dodge like her empowered attack, dodge her shuriken flip, dodge any of her abilities with hookshot or with your ult, then you know you can go all in on her with Camille. Akali really likes to go in, then out, then in, then out. And so if you ult her during that duration, she's not going to know what to do and she's going to panic. Lastly, Gragas. Gragas is the one of these that I play the least, but I do know that if Gragas just plays very safe, land barrels on Akali, if you miss the barrels, you're not going to be able to counter her. But when you know she's going to come in, you want to use your Drunken Rage, or even just to walk up on her and trade with her to get that like magic resistance. Yeah, Gragas, you're not going to have a good time if you can't hit your barrels on Akali. But if you do, you'll be able to trade with her very effectively with Drunken Rage. And if you can get the minions out of the way quickly enough or bait her in, you can go for a body slam on her and make her think twice about trading with you as Gragas. He's got a lot of tools to be able to do that. Alright, well, so I just talked for 6 minutes about Akali. I didn't think I was going to talk that much. So next let's talk about Malphite, the other champion that I have in the SS tier for top lane. Malphite is in the SS tier for one reason. I mean, it's a few reasons, but they're all basically the same. He's almost never a bad pick. Malphite is the safest pick you can make in top lane. Whether you're going tank or full AP, both builds of Malphite are good depending on the enemy composition. He makes extremely safe trades with his rock. The thing with Malphite is that he's not going to die in lane, like almost ever, unless he gets ganked and is out of position, but he's also not going to hard pressure somebody early. And then Malphite will scale and become more useful as the game goes on. Other champions are not like that, which we will get into later. Some soft counters for Nasus. These aren't necessarily things that will like kill Nasus early. These are just more things that will they will scale better than him and abuse the fact that he's a very safe lane pick. So first you have Nasus. This should be self-explanatory. Nasus can get almost infinite free stacks with a Malphite in lane. And if he ever does try to kill you to stop you from stacking, you just pop your ult on Nasus, and Malphite can't do anything to that. So next is Singed. Singed is very vulnerable to being shut down early in top lane, and it's very hard for Malphite to do that. So you can get pretty tanky and big on Singed against Malphite, and then just kind of roam the map and be annoying, and that's exactly what Singed wants. Next we have Fiora. If there's nothing to stop a Fiora, she's just going to keep lunging you over and over and over. She can block Malphite's ult with Riposte, and honestly, if I was a Fiora laning against Malphite, I would just take the wave over and over and over, maybe try to kill him. Maybe you can't kill him because he's really tanky and he's building armor, but eventually you just start roaming the map. Like, what's he going to do? He's Malphite, he's so slow. He won't be able to match your rotation speed as Fiora. You can get fed, go start a duel with somebody elsewhere on the map. The Malphite's not going to be able to keep up. He's too safe of a lane pick. There's a great window to be aggressive with Fiora in there. Lastly, we have Vayne. Vayne is not really a good top lane pick, except for against Malphite. Only against tank Malphite, I'll say. Vayne's perk is incredible against tanks, and Malphite is a tank with not much offensive ability unless he's going AP, and then he'll just die a lot faster if he's going AP anyways. So yeah, I would only ever pick Vayne top unless it's against a Malphite. Alright, moving into the S tier. Now here I have Pantheon. I realize that some other people may rate Pantheon lower in the top lane because he was apparently nerfed recently, but I wasn't here for that, so because I only started playing this game when it fully released in NA. So yeah, Pantheon, one of my top most played champions. He has extremely high burst damage, and in my opinion, he has the best level 3 in the entire top lane if he has Ignite. You take Ignite on Pantheon, hit level 3, empowered Shield Vault into Ignite, into Spear Thrust. That will either force anybody to back or kill them at level 3. It doesn't matter who you're playing against, unless maybe it's like Malphite that started out with an armor. Like, you hit level 3 on Pantheon, you clear some minions, you all in, and then you get a kill, and then you're snowballing. That is how you want to play Pantheon. He needs a little bit of a snowball, so you are incentivized to go for these all-ins with Ignite on him early. He's got incredible 1v1 potential and semi-global map presence with his ult. So, yeah, learn those combos with Pantheon, aim those spears correctly, and take those all-in fights, especially when you see enemies that are, using important abilities on the minions, or just they think they can get aggressive on you. Like if you're playing against an Akali, yes, Akali is in a higher tier than Pantheon. She has better trading than Pantheon, but at level 3, you can stand above her. If you go for that all-in with Ignite at level 3 on an Akali, say she wastes her Twilight Shroud to trade with you, that's your go button. Then you snowball, then Akali never gets her items, and Pantheon rules the map. So that's how you want to play Pantheon. Some counters to Pantheon, soft counters. Wukong is kind of a hard counter to Pantheon. Anybody that can sort of just kind of shrug off or dodge completely his point and click crowd control like Wukong is going to be a counter to him. As Pantheon, 80% of your entire being is that Shield Vault Spear Thrust combo. Wukong can just kind of say nope to that. So he's going to be the hard counter. Malphite is kind of a soft counter if he's building armor. He can actually kind of out-damage you in a long fight because Pantheon's basic attacks are not great. And then lastly, I put Garen on there because Garen is somebody that can kind of just shrug off Pantheon's combos if he gets his tenacity ability up and is building tanky. So if you can't kill Garen at level 3, you're probably not going to be able to kill him 1v1 ever, and you're going to need your teammates. Alright, moving on. Next we have Camille. I talked a little bit about Camille earlier with Akali. Camille has a very high skill cap, and with that comes high outplay potential. She's similar to Akali in that regard, however she is AD. She's got great 1v1 power, almost as strong as Fiora, honestly. With her adaptive shield, depending on who you're facing, she gets armor or magic resistance. However, Camille kind of suffers in long trades before she has her ult. She's very weak before getting her first item compared to other champions that spike early, but once she gets that first item, then it's go time with Camille. You want to play a little bit passive until you get your ult, but once you get that ult, then you've got 2 abilities. Like I said, they can make you go untargetable, dodge skill shots, come out with the stun off the wall. If the enemy's pushing you into your turret as Camille, they can't really get to the turret range without being too close to the wall for you to hookshot them. And then if they've got something like a stun or something like that, predict it, tap your ult, and you dodge it instantly, and then that's a great 1v1 for you. Take Ignite on Camille also. You want to be going for those aggressive 1v1s once you get her ult. So, yeah. Soft counters for Camille. Akali certainly outtrades her. If you can survive Akali until you get your ult, then it's a bit of a skill matchup. But surviving Akali early game with trades, easier said than done. Gragas, if he hits his barrels, can really make Camille think twice about trading, especially with Body Slam. If you go all in on the Gragas, he can just knock you away with his ult, even if you think you can kill him. Darius. I put Darius on here, even though he's not really a counter to very much. I feel like Darius wants you to come to him, and Camille is happy to oblige. Darius is incredible in long trades. Camille, not so much. You're gonna have to get max hemorrhage stacks on you if you're trying to kill a Darius, and that's really bad. So if you don't try to poke Darius down before you go into him, you're gonna have a bad time on Camille. And then lastly, I have Wukong on here simply because he can straight up dodge hook shots, second activation. Just like with Pantheon, he can just kind of say nope to your telegraphed crowd control. And yeah, he builds tanky. He might not kill you, but he might definitely out-trade you in like a number of trades. And then that leads to him getting the turret, and then he roams the map, and then he gets more value than you, and yeah. So, wow. 15 minutes of just talking about the first two tiers. So let's move on to the next one. Alright, so moving on to the A tier. First, we have Gragas. Gragas is a good all-around top laner, whether he's building AP or tank. It's hard to dive him with Body Slam and Exploding Cask, and he scales very well into the late game. He's a little bit less safe than Malphite. I feel like there's more room to mess up playing Gragas than there is Malphite. If you miss your barrels a lot, you're gonna get punished for it. I honestly think he's very similar to Malphite, except for the fact that he has it's easier to mess him up, and he has a little bit more AP potential than Malphite does. But yeah, he's only gonna scale as you get into the late game, become more and more useful, especially with that ult. So keep that in mind when you're picking Gragas. You want to watch out for champions as Gragas that can easily get into you. People that can easily go in and out, like Fiora or a Diana, or yeah, stuff like that as Gragas to watch out for. So next we have Wukong. Now honestly, I've never played Wukong. I have only watched people play him in top lane. He's very annoying. You're almost never going to kill Wukong outright if he's smart with his clone. And for that reason, he can stall the top lane almost infinitely if he just manages his clone correctly. So for that reason, I put him in A tier. If you've got a top lane matchup that you're afraid of and you don't know what to play into it, maybe just try Wukong if you've played him before. You'd be surprised how much time you can waste with your clone. So moving on to Fiora. Fiora is going to be my last champion in the A tier, and she's an interesting one. I talked before about champions that scale with team usefulness throughout the game. Fiora does the opposite of that. As the game gets later and later, it's harder and harder for her to find value. She is obviously best in 1v1s. Her name is the Grand Duelist after all. But once she starts having to take 2v2s, 3v3s, it becomes really, really hard to get what you were getting out of Fiora in the laning phase. She has an unparalleled 1v1 laning phase. But if you can survive that, she's not going to be very useful past 15 minutes. And that's why I have Fiora at the bottom of the A tier. Okay, so next we have Garen. Garen is a very vanilla pick, but he certainly fulfills his niche. Yes, he's very basic. That's what people always say about Garen. But if you have a champion facing you, like maybe, I don't know, Camille or Akali or Malphite or Pantheon, and you don't know what you're gonna do. You're I know this person's gonna aggress onto me, and I don't know what to do. Garen is always there. He's got very clear win conditions. He's got a great ultimate. He's extremely tanky. It's easy to farm with him. You just kind of spin to win. It's very hard to mess up playing Garen, and you can still dish out some serious damage. If somebody's not good with the Garen matchup, it's going to be pretty apparent. You're just going to spin on them for free. He clears waves very quickly with his spin. And yeah, there's not really much that hard counters Garen, except for Teemo, honestly. So if you don't know what else to do, and you're not playing against Teemo, Garen is okay. He's in the B tier, he's a good pick. He's not an outstanding pick, but you can make him work and win the lane with him if you're not playing against Teemo. Alright, so I have Darius next, after Garen. Some people may disagree with where I've put Darius, but I believe that the only reason that you see Darius pop off in solo queue is that people don't know how to play against him. People stand in the range of his pull and feed him in top lane, then he roams the map and gets a pentakill with his ult. Like, that's the Darius experience right there. People don't understand how much he heals from his, like, first ability, so they engage him when he's low, and then he just executes them. The Darius experience, like I said. Darius gets absolutely wrecked by people that can farm from outside his pull range, okay? He's going to do the same thing every time. He plays the same, like, in almost every situation. He's going to he's going to stand on your minions and wait for you to try to farm, and then he's going to try to pull you. Last hitting is not worth getting pulled by Darius in the laning phase, okay? You wait for the minions to get to your tower if you're scared of the Darius. You do not walk up into his pull range and try to farm. That's how he gets fed, okay? So, that is how you counter Darius. Crowd control in the late game, a safe laning phase, or if you're just playing Akali, you just kind of out-trade him from outside his range, or with Pantheon, just get in his face before he can do the combo, and then block his first ability with Aegis Assault. But I digress. After this is Diana. Post-buff, Diana is pretty good. There's not really anything on this list that she hard counters, except for maybe something like Teemo or Kennen. Diana is pretty good. She's maybe a little bit less tanky than you would want a top laner to be, but she can run away with the game if she gets a few kills. She's very good post-buff. Yeah, but you really gotta manage her laning phase well. She has very poor farming, like before she gets her attack speed up. I recommend getting Nashor's Tooth for that. Yeah, so she can easily be bullied away from the lane and forced to farm with only her Crescent Strike, and that's why I have her kind of low in the B tier, because if you know how to dodge the Crescent Strike, Diana literally has no way to dive you. So it's pretty easy to exploit her laning phase. You know she has to land Crescent Strike to actually go in on you. You're always going to know when she's going to go in if you get hit by Crescent Strike. So it's pretty easy to read her and make good decisions about fighting her off of those reads. So next I have Olaf. Honestly, I feel like Olaf is mostly a jungler. I've seen him in top lane a few times. He does pretty well. If he's getting outranged, he's going to have a very bad time. For that reason, things like Kennen, things like Darius, maybe even Camille. I know Olaf does rely on some ability damage, so being able to dodge that ability damage is very nice. Even Teemo maybe. These things are going to give Olaf kind of a hard time. He thrives in the jungle, where he can chase you around with his movement speed. There's a turret in the top lane, and I think that hurts Olaf a lot. That's why I've got him low in the B tier. Alright, so next we have Kennen at the bottom of the B tier. Maybe I should have rated Kennen a little bit higher, but I feel like he's a very niche pick. You pick Kennen when you're fighting an enemy that is going to come to you. A Pantheon, an Akali, a Fiora, maybe a Garen or a Darius. These are great times to pick Kennen. He has good crowd control with his passive, but that crowd control is only consistent when the enemy is coming to you. Another thing about Kennen is that if he gets behind, he's almost useless. Kennen from behind is impossible. It's just not good. If you don't have that little bit of tankiness advantage from maybe a dragon or having part of a defensive item or hourglass or something like that, if you're fighting from behind without that, it's quite impossible to get a good ult off his Kennen, especially when they have more items than you. You cannot lose the laning phase as Kennen. It's just very, very bad. So for that reason, you want to pick Kennen, like I said, in situations where you know they're coming to you. Because when they come to you, that makes it very easy to chain your passive with Kennen and get good stuns, and then you can chain that into ults and ignites and kills. Okay, moving on to the C tier. We have Nasus. So Nasus is at the top of the C tier. This means he's not necessarily a bad pick, but there are a lot better picks. Nasus is great when you have an enemy top laner that is going to farm very safely. And that is going to be people like Malphite or Kennen. Nasus is pretty good into Kennen. So yeah, people that are just going to sit back and farm, people that you know are just going to sit back and farm, maybe even Singed also. Yeah, Nasus is pretty good into Singed. These are great times to pick Nasus. With Nasus, the more stacks he gets, the more powerful he is. Champions that can stop him from farming early, like Akali, Pantheon, Fiora, Diana, these are champions that are going to pose a huge problem for Nasus. If you're playing against one of these aggressive champions early, you need to survive until you get your ult, and then you should be fine. You can at least hug your turret, use your ult as like a reactionary tool for if they dive you. If you can survive to that point, you're okay. Then you'll have to worry about the rest of the map having lots of crowd control. That's just the Nasus experience. Alright, so next we have Galio. Galio has not seen much play since his nerf. However, I do believe he still has a place here on the tier list, and that is purely against AP top laners. You can pick Galio to kind of fight against an Akali, to fight against a AP Gragas, a Diana, a Kennen, maybe even a Teemo. Gragas or Galio is very good against AP champions. That is just how he's built, literally built in the lore. But he's gonna suffer against AD champions, okay? So I would save Galio for when you know they are about to play an AP top laner, and then he's pretty good for forcing the issue against those champions. All right, so next we have Singed. Singed is a bit of a weird pick. Not really sure what to say about him, to be honest. He's not good early. If you can survive that early game, though, Singed becomes very annoying. He's a split pusher. He plays differently than any champion in the game. You don't chase people as Singed, they chase you, and then they die. All I can say about Singed is that he's very bad early. If you get killed early as Singed, they're just going to ignore your poison for the rest of the game and continue to kill you. You're going to have to survive until you can get your ult for that movement speed and sustain. So yeah, you want to pick Singed against melee champions that have to stand near your fling range to farm. And then you also need to survive early, so you really don't want to play him into something like Akali or Pantheon or Fiora. So that doesn't leave much, but there still is a niche for Singed, which is why I have him in the C tier. I have Vayne in the C tier purely because of how well she does into tanks. You should only pick Vayne in top if you know they are going to have like a full tank. Okay? Like if they pick Malphite, you know that Malphite is going top, then you can pick Vayne. Now, she's not like an instant win against those tanks though, so you still have to play it correctly. She's not very strong in the bot lane in general right now, which is why I have her in the bottom of the C tier. The C tier is honestly just counter picks, to be completely honest. But yeah, pick Vayne to counter tanks. However, if that tank doesn't end up in the top lane, you are screwed. Moving on to the D tier. First we have Jax. Jax is a really fun champion. I like Jax. I like his character, I like his kit. However, he has a very hard time sticking to his targets in Wild Rift. I would almost recommend going like half tank, half AD on Jax. Maybe get something like Frozen Mallet to slow down your enemies. People often just kind of walk out of Jax's stun, and if you don't win the lane trades early, it's very difficult to come back. He is a great split pusher and a great 1v1 like potential person, but like the time at which he becomes really good in 1v1s is unfortunately the time at which most teams start to group together, and then Jax becomes less and less good, just like Fiora. So if you can survive the early laning phase, get some items up, get some attack speed, and then just start trying to force your lane, Jax can be pretty good. But if you miss that window and the game goes longer, you're going to find yourself with like 5 stuns, 2 charms, and 3 knockups, and then you're dead. Because Jax has to walk into those to do his damage. Alright, so next we have Teemo. Teemo is basically only good in top as a counter pick to something like Nasus, Garen, or let's see, maybe even Singed or Dr. Mundo, not Tryndamere. Yeah, so melee champions that don't have ranged abilities and need to stay by the minions consistently to farm, these are the champions that you're going to want to pick Teemo into. Even still, I don't recommend picking Teemo because his usefulness in team fights, like big team fights, is very small unless you are just a god about putting mushrooms and they just somehow walk into them. Yeah, I don't recommend playing Teemo. However, into stuff like Nasus, Garen, and Dr. Mundo, it is okay to play Teemo. You can win the laning phase like that. Just be aware that you're going to be less and less useful as the game goes on. No matter how much AP you get, you can't force them to walk into your mushrooms, okay? Alright, finally, the F tier. These are champions that you should not be picking in top under any circumstances right now. Tryndamere. Tryndamere is balls in this game, okay? Like, Tryndamere in PC League is like good at sticking to people. He's very fast. He can get items that make him fast. And honestly, he can do those things in Wild Rift too. But you know what he can do in PC League that he can't do in Wild Rift? He can dodge skill shots. In Wild Rift, you can literally just auto-target your stuns, and as long as Tryndamere is not moving horizontally, it's just going to go right to him. Like, say you're using a Lux route, right? Tryndamere's coming after you in a straight line, just press your stun, and oh, there he goes. Tryndamere does not have any situations where he wants to move horizontally towards you. He is a all-in or nothing champion, which means that he eats every single ability of crowd control in Wild Rift, and that's why he's in the F tier. His ability to juke and dodge is greatly reduced due to the auto-targeting of spells in this game. I mean, when I say that, I mean the auto-targeting of spells on people that are coming straight at you. Obviously, the auto-targeting sucks if they're moving horizontally. That's when you want a manual target. But Tryndamere is always coming straight at you, and that's why he's in the F tier. Same thing with Dr. Mundo. He can thrive in the jungle because he can get kind of ahead and start to gank. But in top, he is just so vulnerable before level 5. Almost any champion with like movement or gap closing on this list can kill Dr. Mundo before he gets his ult. And yeah, just do not play Dr. Mundo in top. Save him for the jungle. Yeah, so that is going to wrap up my top lane tier list. This went longer than I thought it would. Thank you for watching. I hope it was informative. And let me know if you want to see me make more Wild Rift content in the future. Yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys back in another video soon.